And now we will go into the next section of Ecclesiastes, which is the final words of the teacher. And I also said a comment from the author.
Okay.
Now, do you want to read it or I got it?
I got this one.
Alrighty.
8 through 14.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, 8 through 14. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. Keep this in mind. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. Their collected sayings are like a nail-studded stick which with a shepherd drives the sheep. But, my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless, and much study wears you out. That's the whole story. Here now is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every single thing, whether good or bad.
That's good. That's real good.
This end is...
I like it. I like that. I like that a lot.
There's not much to add to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot to talk about. There ain't much to add to it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, some people might be wondering, specifically in the title, a comment from the author. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I thought this whole thing was written by one dude.
That was going on in my head as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, the reason why I said that is because right here you can kind of tell a difference in the tone.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so the first verse, verse 8, everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. And then right here, keep this in mind. The teacher, so now we're speaking from a third person perspective. The teacher was considered wise, and he taught the people everything he knew. He listened carefully to many proverbs, studying and classifying them. The teacher sought to find just the right words to express truths clearly. The words of the wise. Okay, so right there, you kind of see how it's almost like a student or someone else was sitting in a classroom and listening to what this teacher was saying and writing it from their perspective, just copy and paste. And then at the very end, it's almost like now the student is speaking, or not the student, but this other person is speaking.
Okay.
Almost like trying to lighten the load of what has just been given to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because
sounds almost like a TA.
I mean, yeah, I guess you can say it like that. I mean, I think it's kind of cool because you see like a shift, because it's almost like the author or the teacher or whoever did this is like, this is some dark stuff and this is some really hard stuff to accept. Let me just lighten the load for you a little bit and tell you this isn't the end. Obviously, in our perspective, this isn't the end.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. This is actually pointing to something else. But right here, you see that the author is trying to remind the reader what is actually the point of all this information.
Yes.
So anyways, I just wanted to explain that one part particularly. What are some things that you found pretty interesting just inside this small little passage?
To me, the main point of this passage is an answer to what a lot of people think about Ecclesiastes. Okay. So what I've heard from a lot of people is that, Ecclesiastes is just such a negative book. It's so dark, right? There's not a lot of mention of like this, like a coming deliverance or anything. And so people view it as like very negative. It just says that, nothing in life matters. And even this section starts out with that.
No,
right?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
But when I think about it for a long time, that if the person writing these words does think that everything's meaningless, why attempt to pass this knowledge on? Why attempt to find the right words to communicate this effectively? Because if it doesn't matter, why are you going through the trouble? And so to me, this is saying that there's something else here. And so it begs you to ask, well, why is he choosing to use these words effectively? And I think it's because it's pointing somewhere. That's how I personally view it. Yeah. Whether that's right or wrong or not.
Yeah. I would definitely say that I definitely think it's pointing to somewhere too.
Yeah.
But to expound more specifically on this passage right here, I actually would like to talk about its interconnections with other passages of Scripture, specifically Proverbs.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about is when it refers to the words of the wise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's pretty cool about this is that the phrase, the words of the wise, is only mentioned 4 times in the Old Testament. Only mentioned 4 times. And the only other place that mentions this is Proverbs, in that exact order. Proverbs, which is in the prologue of the book. And it also ends in chapter 22. Or not chapter, I'm sorry. It also mentions it in chapter 22.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know Proverbs ends way farther down the line.
I think it's like 30 something.
Yeah, I think it's like 31. I'm pretty sure it's 31. Anyways, so you can actually see Ecclesiastes making this bridge to Proverbs in the end of the book of Ecclesiastes.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense? And you see that right here, Proverbs chapter 1, verses 5 through 6. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles. That's good. This is something that I just found very, very interesting.
Okay.
The words of the wise and their riddles.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What do they mean by that, riddles?
Riddles?
I've always been interested in that because it's like riddles. What is a riddle? It's like it's a hard question to answer.
It's tricky. Almost.
Yeah, it's like it's a very tricky, twisted question.
I would say
I feel like it's supposed to have a simple answer, but then it's an answer that you would never expect.
It has a twist.
Yeah,
is what I would say. It's like a statement that's common, but then it has a twist in it.
Yeah.
Right. So like some of them are like, this occurs in this word 2 times, and then it only happens in this word once.
Yeah.
And like that's actually the key to it, right? Because it's like looking at letters. Usually is what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the phrase is saying something different.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like a twist on it.
Mm.
Yet at the same time, like when I think about the idea of riddles or wise people talking in riddles, it's trying to communicate something that you cannot communicate simply.
Yeah.
It's trying to capture something or to categorize something that cannot be categorized as far as we know. I view it almost in the same way as Jesus speaking in parables. There's like so much great truth that is expressed in those parables, and like that is the most efficient way to communicate them is in the parable. And so like wise people, they like see this concept, but it can't crystallize and they can't say it straight. It's almost that like through the discovery of solving the riddle, that's how the true knowledge is obtained.
Ooh, I like that. That's good. That's real good. So we'll just keep going forward in this study, or this close study of Ecclesiastes, verses 8 through 14. Another interesting thing, too, some scholars believe that the collected sayings, when Ecclesiastes references collected sayings, it could be most likely referring to Proverbs, Job, and maybe even the Apocrypha. Yeah, and if you guys don't know what the Apocrypha is, that is actually, I believe, in the Catholic version of their Bible. And Apocrypha literally means to hide away or hidden books. And these are what you would call, I believe, deuterocanonical books or Second Temple writings. So a lot of these writings in the Apocrypha happened during the Second Temple, or roughly during a time period, or I want to say right before Jesus came onto the scene. That's what I want to say. We might do a fact check, though, just to make sure. But specifically, what books this author could be referring to maybe is the wisdom literature of Jesus of Sychar and the wisdom literature of Solomon, or the wisdom of Solomon inside the specifically in the Apocrypha. Because we know Solomon wrote pieces of Proverbs, and some scholars even believe that he wrote Ecclesiastes as well. Now, the goads referenced in verse 11 are prodding sticks, and people who mastered this wisdom literature are similar to driven nails in that they are stable and secure. Now, that's a quote from Thomas Constable, once again, PhD. That's the way he reads this. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
I know. I never seen it that way either.
Where the nails is the focus, not the subject that's taking the nails. Interesting.
Well, what's interesting too, though, is that I think what he's kind of saying right there is how this wisdom is, it's kind of like that concept that we were talking about, how suffering provides a discipline or a refining for the believer.
Yeah.
It helps them become stronger. In the same way, this wisdom is in a way to help them become stronger.
Absolutely.
And to prepare them. And that hammering is the wisdom. And that nail is getting stronger, and it's going deeper into that wood, learning how to deal with the problems. Maybe that wood that's what it's representing.
Okay.
And it's fixed in that, and it's stable, and nothing will be able to mess with it or destroy it.
Interesting.
And that's us, pretty much. I see that's what he's pretty much saying.
Ah.
I just thought that was pretty interesting.
I have a slightly different one on that.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
so the goat,
Yeah.
so the goat or this nail, thing is used to guide someone.
Yeah.
To where the shepherd would have him go.
Yeah.
In this case, right? It's a guide.
Yeah.
But when he's saying it in that way that he's phrasing it, it sounds like the subject is the nails. And so, like, if I have a goad and I use it to move something, right? The nails don't move. The other thing moves. And so in this interpretation, what I hear from him is like, the wisdom affects you. You don't affect the wisdom. The wisdom is wisdom whether or not, like, you agree to it or not.
Ooh, that's good.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's really
it
good.
stands
I like that.
firm. Yeah.
Dude, that's good.
Whether that's right or wrong, that's what I got out of that.
No, I'm going to take yours. I like that. I'm taking that. That is really good. I like that a lot. Another interesting thing, too, that I saw, and this is the way I saw it, is that what I found really interesting was, you see when it's talking about the goad and basically how these things should be shepherding people. Or let's actually just read it again. Let me just read it again, actually, so people understand what I'm talking about. The words of the wise are like cattle prods, painful but helpful. Their collected sayings are like a nail-studded stick with which a shepherd drives the sheep. Now, I feel like right here, what this passage is actually tapping into is what I would call that shepherd motif or that shepherd theme in the Bible. Does that make sense? Because what are some other people that are referenced as shepherds? Pastors. And I feel like this is connecting to that theme of how, just like how Jesus is our great shepherd, or Moses was a great shepherd, David was a great shepherd. In the same way, this wisdom is also a shepherd, and it's contributing to that, which I feel like also displays the role of certain people in other people's lives. But to really get into the verses that I'm referring to, I'll read Isaiah chapter 63, verse 11, and it says, "Then they remembered those days of old, when Moses led his people out of Egypt. They cried out, 'Where is the one who brought Israel through the sea, with Moses as their shepherd? Where is the one who sent his Holy Spirit to be among his people?'" Then you have in Psalm 78, it says, "He chose his servant David, calling him from the sheep pens. He took David from tending the ewes and lambs and made him the shepherd of Jacob's descendants, God's own people, Israel. He cared for them with a true heart and led them with skillful hands." And then you have in Acts 20, verse 28, "So guard yourselves and God's people, feed and shepherd God's flock, his church, purchased with his own blood, over which the Holy Spirit has appointed you as leaders." So he's referring to pastors, things like that. Then you have in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 2, "Care for the flock that God has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you will get out of it, but because you are eager to serve God." So you see this theme tracking through Scripture. And what it's all pointing to is ultimately Jesus. Just like how the church, creation, passages in the Old Testament, this wisdom literature, the church, the leaders, the pastors, is all pointing to the ultimate leader, the ultimate wisdom, the ultimate guide, which is Jesus Christ. And you see that in John chapter 10, verse 11, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep." And then you see it again. Isaiah 40:11. He will feed, and this is a prophecy, by the way, of talking about the Messiah. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will carry the lambs in his arms, holding them close to his heart. I mean, come on, dude. There's so many, I'm not even going to get into that, but there's so many passages that reference Jesus as doing that through the help of the Holy Spirit with him and believers. He will gently lead the mother sheep with their young. And they have also in Psalm 23, verses 1 through 3, the Lord is my shepherd. Now you see even God, God the Father being symbolized as this great shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. And so, what I'm seeing with this is this basically just contributing to that role. Its purpose, especially with people who have maybe gone through church hurt and things like that. And one way I kind of put it is this, to kind of help guard against that. This is my view, personally. And I could be wrong, but this is my personal view.
Let it fly.
The church is not the foundation. It's a tool.
Yeah.
The church's purpose is to equip the saints. Its job is to help you with your faith and to help spread the gospel. Now, you have a part to play in that.
Absolutely.
But it should not be to the point where your relationship with Christ is suffering. You see what I'm saying? Because so many people, they when they get into the church, they're serving, they're doing all these things, which is great. They're excited. They're ready to go. But then they end up getting hurt. Or maybe the churches does something to them, because we all know there's a whole bunch of, people are people. Churches, there's a lot of damage that churches also do too. But that shouldn't be tainting the actual person that you should be serving. That's the thing. Instead of blaming God, why not just realize that maybe the people are doing it the wrong way? Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Because I feel like when you see it as a tool and not as the foundation, then you realize maybe this tool just might be broken.
Tool might be broken.
Yeah, maybe something's just not going right.
Yeah, I view it too as if you make your relationship with Christ just about your relationship of the church, right? You begin to praise the creation more than the creator.
Yes.
Right? The church is a creation of God for his purpose. Yeah. And so you should sit there. You're worshiping God, not worshiping the church. And I mean that as far as, not just the building in the front of the church. I'm saying the people that are in the church, the authorities that are in the church. You can give them some level of honor that is due to them. Oh, yeah. Right? Because if there's somebody who's doing a really good job feeding the people of God, that's good. Yeah. And you can be an encourager, right? Yeah. That's a role in the church. Yeah. An encourager. Oh, yeah. But at the same time, it's your relationship with God it shouldn't only come through the church. Yes. It's everybody pointing together. The church is not this path that you take to get to God, basically. Yes. That you said it so well. Yes. And that's why I feel like that's a safe way of going about it too. Is because when you go about it that way, you learn that I can take a break. I need to rejuvenate, I need to rest. Psalm 23. I need to, it's you don't feel so much pressure on having to do everything right. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because that's just the truth. You should, that's honestly how it should be. Yeah. And if it's not being that, and if it's not working out that way, you need to probably change something. Mm-hmm. Because your relationship with Christ should be ultimately fueling everything. Yes. Everything. And I hear this all the time too about we need more leaders, we need more this, we need more that. And it's dude, if they don't know Jesus, we're just going to have more leaders that aren't doing the right thing. If you're just raising people. Yeah, if you're just raising people, we're just going to have more people doing the wrong thing. In my personal opinion, I feel like we got enough leaders. There's so many leaders that are doing the wrong thing. And it's well, look at the world. Look at all the leaders that are leading them. You got the Andrew Tates out there. You got hey, I'm gonna keep it real, man. I'm gonna keep it real. You got all these people that are saying some crazy things out there where it's dude,
don't get me wrong. I would say he's a leader. There's other people that are like leaders too, but are they leading correctly? Are they doing the right thing with their leadership? That's the thing. If anything, I feel like enough with leaders. Let's get more people loving Christ. And when you get people loving Christ, then they will become the correct type of leader.
It's a byproduct, not the goal.
Yeah, it's a byproduct, not the goal. And it's the same. And I would say it's the same thing about knowledge of the scriptures.
I was about to go on
100%,
because that's what this says.
100%.
In verse 12, right? It's just saying like the writing of these books, these studies, you can go on forever. You can go on forever.
Oh yeah.
And it's not saying that it's detrimental. It's saying that it even can be helpful.
Yeah.
But it's just helpful. It's not the end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
What does he say the end all be all is in the next two verses after verse 12?
To
right?
honor God.
If all that knowledge helps you, good for you. Great for you.
Mm-hmm.
But don't let all this knowledge seeking, this chasing of it, distract you from the actual goal.
Oh, yeah. Because honestly, the danger is that can become an idol. That can become an idol. It
Dangerous.
really can. And it's not just that, but it's like multiple other things. Like, for example, like you can want marriage so bad. But the thing is, and this is a reality check too. If you want marriage so bad to the point where you're getting mad at God for not being married or something like that, you might need to check yourself.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying marriage is bad. Marriage is a beautiful thing, especially when it's done in the context of the scriptures. It is absolutely amazing. But the reality is that sometimes God calls us to do things that we might not want to do. And for some people, not saying everyone, that's a very, very small, I would even say it's probably less than 0.5%. But the truth is though, is if God has put that on your heart to be single or to like not get married or anything like that, you need to honor him. You need to honor that. It's about denying yourself. And what if that denying is something that you want? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Marriage should not be on that totem pole. It should be God.
Yes.
Same thing with video games. Same thing with sports. Same thing with whatever it is. It could be working out, literally anything. God should be at the top of that.
Absolutely.
Not you, not your goals, not your this or that. No, it needs to be him. Because if it's not him, it's just another sin that's clouding the mishaps in your life, clouding all of the jacked up things that you end up falling into. That depression, all that stuff, I guarantee it probably won't go away. I won't say it will go away because obviously you need to do other things to help with that. But I definitely think a load will definitely alleviate when you put your hope, your trust, your joy in Jesus Christ. Does that make sense?
That it does. It's the idea. It's this balance thing that Christians have to do, where it says like, bear your cross daily, but also my burden is light.
Yes.
Right. So which part of the burden are you alleviating? Right. It's not saying that it's going to be easy. It's saying that if you're following Christ, certain things that are weighing you down will go away. Now, is that maybe those are like the big whys of why you're doing something? Because a lot of people's problem may be motivation. Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
If you don't have a clear motivation in your mind, it's hard to get motivated.
Oh yeah.
If you don't have a clear goal, it's hard to align what you're doing. Right? So if you're like preparing for something, like you have like you need to have something you're preparing for to effectively prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And so what it's saying is like that executive psychological load is gone if it's like, why am I doing this? Because I love Christ. Because I'm serving Christ. I want to be a better follower of Christ.
Oh yeah.
So like that portion of it gets taken care of. That portion's light. Once again, it's a little bit conjecturish, but like that's where I'm saying where there's
I see. And honestly though, when you think about it, when you are following him and his purpose and his goal is on your life, he is going to naturally prepare that type of stuff for you. It will happen. But you have to be content with if it doesn't. Because if it doesn't, then that means he might be preparing you for something else.
There you go. Yeah.
Like the question is, what is he trying to teach you in this moment? That's what you should be looking for. What is he trying to show you in that moment and when something's not going your way? Because for me, what I've seen, and I also see preached so much in the scriptures too, is that typically the people who love Jesus the most are also the ones who end up doing what he wants the most. What I mean by that is like a lot of the people that I've seen that just love the scriptures, that are just trying to get close to him, that are just trying to follow his word, trying to follow him, trying to grow their relationship deeper with him, end up being Bible leaders, end up spreading the gospel more, end up giving more, end up bringing more people to Christ, end up talking more about him. And it's not because they're trying to do all that. It's simply because of their renewing of their mind. They're wanting to just get closer to him. And from them just wanting to get closer to him, they just end up naturally doing all of that. You talk about having a leader, give him Jesus. Then from there, he will slowly become a leader. Now, of course,
I mean, who raised up the leaders in the Old Testament?
Perfect example. He took all of the ones that you would think would not be a leader. Straight up. Dude, look at Moses, man. He was like, don't do this, man. Don't
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
Dude, exactly.
Get my brother. He's better.
Get my brother. And then look at Aaron. Look at Aaron. He came, dude was like, let's build a calf. What? And guess who was still staying strong, leading Israel? Moses. And he started from the jump not wanting to lead nothing. Look at David, dude. He went from leading sheep to leading all of Israel. Like, he has taken the very people that you would not expect to lead anything to lead everything. I mean, think about Paul. Perfect example.
Yeah.
Dude was like I'm gonna be honest, dude was like a mini Hitler out here. He was killing Christians everywhere. He was out for blood. This man literally woke up and chose violence. He was out here just killing Christians everywhere. I know that's not something to laugh about, but
dang, bro.
I mean, it's the truth. He was dude.
No, he's the exact antithesis of who you think leading the church. He was persecuting the church. He was killing Christians.
He was straight up. That's a Christian. He's mine. He's done.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it was. And literally from his experience with Christ, he became one of the main reasons why we have Christianity in the Western world. Literally.
I mean, that's just the idea of like how God works, right? He doesn't want there to be this like easy logical explanation.
He doesn't want you to do it alone.
Yeah, it's just through him, right? That's why it's all these people who you don't expect. Because you're like, that almost sounds impossible. There have to be some sort of something behind them. And God's like, it's me. Like, that's what he's doing.
Yep. And one thing to make clear too, that's not to discredit like leadership courses and marriage counseling or like any of that other stuff either. I would actually go as far as to say, if you feel like God's calling you to be a leader, then you stewarding that gift that God has given you calls you to go and do that leadership course
and to hone your skill.
Go and do that marriage counseling. Go and work out, take care of that body that God has given you. There is a clear, in my opinion, I believe that there is a very clear cut reality of when you are idolizing something and when you should be stewarding and putting safeguards around what God has given you. Does that make sense?
Say it one more time.
I'm sorry. What I mean by that is that you have a marriage.
Yeah.
You as a husband taking your wife to counseling, trying to work on your relationship, trying to serve her, trying to love her, doing everything you can to make sure that her psychological health is there. Is not you idolizing her or idolizing your marriage.
Okay.
That's you following what God has commanded you to do, and that is to take care of your wife as your body.
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm there. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, much clearer. What's the other one about putting hedges around it or something?
That's what I meant by like, that's the hedge part of like setting boundaries and
versus
doing that
idolizing
stuff.
it.
Versus like idolizing it. To where literally, I would say you're serving your wife, or let's say like working out, right? You're working out all the time, but yet you don't have your own Bible study time with God.
Yeah.
You look chiseled and everything, but yet you are dark inside. You can't even really present the gospel to somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a problem right there. That's like, okay, you might need to check yourself a little bit, man. Like you need to be meditating. You need to be in the Word. You need to be looking to Jesus, praying, spending that time with him. And that looks different for everybody.
That's what I was going to say.
That's another clear thing, too.
Yeah.
That looks very different for everybody. For some people, it's in the Word, reading constantly. For other people, it's worship. They need to worship. They can worship for like 4 to 5 hours, and that's beautiful, and that's amazing. For other people, it's prayer. They can pray for like 4 to 6 hours. That's amazing. Whatever that is for you, go and do that.
100%.
And grow in the other aspects of your life. That is the real message of what is getting out. Mm-hmm. Whatever God has put on your heart, try to grow in that. And try to do it the most productive and efficient way as possible. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And use wisdom for that. Hope that
that was good.
Makes everything more clear, makes more sense to our viewers of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So we'll move on to this next portion, which is the last portion, which is Jesus in the midst of Hevel. Of the Hevel. Jesus in the midst of the Hevel. Now, the real question is, how does Jesus fit into this book? How does he fit into all of this stuff that we've been talking about, right? That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to talk about is that what this book of Ecclesiastes does so well is that it shows the glitches and the fractures of life.
Yes.
That's what it does. And it not only does that there, but it's honestly pointing to other portions of Scripture, specifically Genesis chapter 3, verse 16 and 19, where it says, "To the woman he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. And to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, you shall not eat it. You shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Now right there, I personally believe, right there, that you can see how sin has entered into the world. And that's what Ecclesiastes honestly is what's kind of speaking of. Mm-hmm. How sin has made life hevel.
Yes.
It has fractured the relationship between men and women. It has fractured, I would take it as far as even, I want to say, even as far as creation itself. Earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, all that stuff, global warming, all these things has, in my opinion, is there, things that cause suffering and stuff like that, is there because it is the ripple effects of sin itself. Mm. Now, other people might have different interpretations of it. That's my view of it. And that right there is what Ecclesiastes, in my opinion, is kind of speaking of. The fracture, the mishaps, the glitches in the system of life, the things that just don't seem right and that don't seem like they should be there, but yet they are there and they are the reality. Mm-hmm. I hear so many people say the fundamental reality of life is pain.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a problem.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Is this the way it was meant to be?
Exactly. That's what it makes you think. Is this what it's actually meant to be? And we have passages right here. For example, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 28b through 33 talks about how the relationship can be fixed. And then we even have in Revelation chapter 21 and in Revelation chapter 22 talks about how the whole earth is going to be renewed and how there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And then we also have in 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 4 through 9, it even shows how the governmental systems even point to something. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how, specifically in that verse, how pretty much even Saul or David's position wasn't even supposed to be there. Just like Moses was, you know, it was really supposed to be God. Mm-hmm. But because of us constantly rejecting him, that sin, which goes back to the root of the problem, is what keeps getting in the way and tainting things. That's specifically what 1 Samuel is actually really getting at, 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 4 through 9. But then you also have in Romans chapter 13, verse 1, where it speaks of how us Christians can fix the governmental system. Hmm. And what I'm really trying to get at is that the real way of fixing it is through Jesus. what all of Ecclesiastes is getting at is that Jesus is here to move away all the smoke. There's going to come a day where he's going to come back, and all the mishaps, all the misfortunes, all the glitches and fractures and problems and suffering that people are experiencing, one day Jesus is going to wipe all that away. This mist, this smoky substance that we're in, that we call life, that the author calls hevel, is going to be gone. Everything's going to be clear. Nothing's going to be like a smoky mirror looking back at us. What is your thoughts on that? How Jesus fits into it?
No, this is it. So like you're looking at Ecclesiastes, and he's looking at this world and how it works, and he's like trying to figure it out, or how to make things right. I think like he goes into all these different positions of life. Like you can hear him talking about, okay, there's all these seasons of life, and this is how life works throughout time. And then in chapter 6, if I remember correctly, he's like talking about like different ways of, human success, where it's like wealth, honor, children, longevity, all of these things, and how they all pass away, and all of these, and riches in particular, like riches that you almost think would be a good thing on their face, when there's too much of them, they're to your hurt, right? And so it's like I see this person searching through all these different things in life to try to figure out how to make it work, because he had everything, is what this is, right? Built great things, had some sort of, just a very lavish lifestyle, and that he figured out that wasn't it. And going through all these different ways to perceive life, he finds that it's meaningless, right? Yeah. And so if you think about this person as a super wise person who pondered things for a very long time, and he couldn't find a solution, to me, I almost think like the solution wasn't there yet. The solution wasn't provided yet. And so I view all these different ways of looking at life as providing an outline or a silhouette. And that silhouette is Christ. Ergo, you can try to figure it out on your own, and you're going to have all these issues, and it's going to be that smoky. You're not going to be able to understand it. Or you can just take God at his word and trust Jesus. And like all of it clears away. It makes it way easier. And sometimes you might need to run your mind through all these different ways, and that's why they're here. They're here so you can bring an end to your mindless wandering of like, why does the world work the way it does? Read Ecclesiastes a lot, your brain will finally give up, and then you'll be like, all right, I just kind of have to trust, don't I? It's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, that's how you do it.
And that's like the first step is trust. Receiving it humbly.
Which is not as easy as like you think.
No,
it's not just trust. That's why this book is here.
Yeah.
Just trust.
Sheesh. It's tough. It's tough. But that's the great thing though, I think, about this book, that what it does is that I feel like it also calls specifically us Christians to take this time on this earth very valuable. I mean, I even have some numbers too that kind of talk about like, dang dude, we really don't have that much, like when you kind of think about it, like we don't have that much time. I mean, well, it's subjective. In my opinion, it feels like we don't have that much time.
Yeah, subjectivity of
so
time,
like,
it's fine.
I mean, for example, if you were to live 100 years, that means you would be living 5,200 weeks.
Yes.
5,200 weeks. By the first set of weeks, when you're a kid, that's 600 weeks already up. Then when you're a teenager, that's 400 weeks up. When you hit 20 years, that's over 1,000 weeks already gone. Just think about that. That's crazy. Like 1,000 weeks are already gone out of that 5,200. And then on top of that, 2,000 of your weeks are going to be gone when you start working. And then when you retire, which is typically around 65, let's just say 65. That means you would have used up 3,400 weeks out of your 5,200 weeks. And then after that, let's say that's your time to like spend and have a good time, right? You're over 65 at that point. You're old. Well, some people might be like, oh, you're not old.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah. Depends on who you ask. My personal opinion, I think you're old.
It's old.
That's old. I mean, I feel like I'm already getting old, but I'm not old. I'm not old. Yeah. I'm not old. I'm just messing.
People are going to jump on.
Yeah, I know. I can see the comments already. What is this guy talking about? No, I'm not old. I'm just messing. I'm going to get there one day, though. And it's a reality that I'm going to have to just take. Mm-hmm. But when you hit 65, though, already 3,400 of your weeks are already gone.
Mm.
Dude, and the average lifespan, at least in America, is 79.
Which is too bad. That's gotten better, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. But think about it. You're pretty much living as much time as you did when you were a kid, but now in your old age.
Yeah.
And then you have to take an account of the diseases and then the weaker form that you have in that period of time. So it's like, you may think that you're about to have a good time. Your back about to start hurting.
The silver cord, as some would call it.
Yeah, man, your knee's about to start hurting. You know,
strong man.
You sleeping? That's gonna be rough.
Well, I was about to tell you is like, you know, what you're not including with that, or maybe you wrote it down somewhere else, is like you're sleeping for a portion of that time.
Oh,
you're just talking about the weeks.
Yeah, I'm just talking about you doing stuff.
You're eating.
The weeks. Yeah,
you're doing all the maintenance that you need to do for yourself to just maintain your life. So the actual time that you do have to do the ecclesiastical, you know, live joyfully, to rejoice in the good of your works, right? It's even more limited.
And that's the thing too. I'm saying if you live to 100,
yeah,
the average is 79. Most men live around 74, 75. Maybe slightly older than that. Maybe let's say 76, 70. I know women live longer than that.
Yeah,
they live up to like, I want to say like 85, around there. At least that's what I would say, like some statistics say. Somewhere around that range. Because once again, of course, like statistics are also around an estimation and stuff. But think about that. 65 is, I guess, when you really start living life.
If that's how you're living.
No, yeah, if that's how you're living, like where, you know, you're going to get to do whatever you want to do. You're going to get to, you know, be whatever you want to be. Like, oh, yeah, I'll get to retire. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go do all this. You can go do that. But it's going to be a struggle if you kind of think about it. Like, your body's going to be hurting. Your sleeping is going to even, like, be in... Like, when you wake up... Like, for example, sometimes after a really hard day of working out and I wake up and I'm, like, super sore, sometimes I wonder, man, this is probably just a taste. Yeah. This is probably just a taste of how, like, old people feel when they wake up.
Yeah.
That's a great example. When you're sick and
is
you
this
wake
how it is
up,
to be old? Oh, broke you on that. Sorry. Really?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was not prepared for that. I wasn't expecting that.
You good, bro? Come on, Stino.
I'm sorry.
You want to talk about McDonald's again?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. But yeah, yes, it sucks. It sucks. Oh my God. Yeah, it's
Stino. Chapter 2, verse 2. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what does it do?
Yeah,
there you go. You just lived it out.
Yeah, I did. I did just live that verse out, did I? Yeah. Yeah, man, getting old sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. It does. But I mean, hey, wisdom comes with it. So that's one good thing about it.
True.
Wise counsel. But
why did you say it that way? I don't know. I'm broke now.
You know, wise counsel. But you know, it sucks though. Like, it's painful. I forgot.
Stino.
I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot.
You have your notes right there.
I know. And it's lost. It's gone. It's gone. Look, anyways, for you people that are watching, when you get older, things get hard. And I mean, not to even think about that, but like, just think about it.
I can't. Stino, you ruined it. I'm so sorry. And now I'm ruining it. I can't take it.
Okay, no, we're going to keep all this in. It's funny.
No, don't keep it in. Put it somewhere else.
Fine. It's
Put it
fine.
at the end.
Look. No, because this is another thing that I want to talk about too. Look, we're gonna keep this. Okay. This is another thing that I want to talk about too, though, is that most people die around 79. Now, let's also think about if you're like obese.
Mm-hmm.
that didn't sound right. I'm sorry. That didn't sound right. My bad.
If you're unhealthy.
There you
go.
I mean, I don't know why I can't. Okay. If you're unhealthy, you know, you're not. You know what? Let's just move on. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about it. You know, it's just. We're going to clip that out.
Kill me.
We're going to clip that out. I'm going to try to pick up where we left off. I'm going to pick up where we left off. Okay, so life is hard, right? When you get older, it's just going to get more and more rough. Mm-hmm. But the great thing is that when you die and when things do get rough, after that, there's going to be a new heaven, there's going to be a new earth. Mm-hmm. Everything's going to be renewed. And what's even better, too, is that we also know that inside this new creation, our bodies won't age.
Exactly.
We'll have new bodies.
Right out of it.
And be continually learning with Christ.
Mm-hmm. This isn't it. Ecclesiastes is describing what is now, but this ain't it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, if you guys really enjoyed this episode, let us know your thoughts on Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Comment, share, subscribe, and let us know. Give us some insights. And, yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Until next time, stay wise and have a blessed day. Peace.